charge my ring light. And gonna fix the community chat here. Not too rough. There we go. All right, that should be good. Glasses. Hey guys, this is kind of a continuation of the last stream in part. Please stay up. Okay, so it's kind of a continuation in part of the last stream. Please stay. I don't know what's going on. All right. Let me pull a couple of things up. Now, we talked a little bit about, and I don't want to keep going over the same stuff, but context is everything. So let's just continue off from where we were, and I'll tell you why we're looking at salt today. From time to time, I will go over things like minerals, metals, plants, herbs. Let me be clear. I know that the book of Enoch says that we learn the cutting of herbs, or the cutting of plants from them. It is my belief and understanding thus far that that means something my stepdad used to do. When you take a cutting from one plant and you mix it with another, just like mixing our genes, it's genetics. It's mixing a rose, a red rose, with a white rose to get a pink rose that doesn't exist, but now you've made it exist. You can actually cut a part of the plant off, attach it to the other part, another plant, and it will eventually bind to that and grow from that. So that is what I believe that means. Witches also are not human. For all intents and purposes, in the Bible and elsewhere, they're not human, or at least they are no longer human, the ones who were human. Salt. Scripture tells us that salt is, that we are the salt of the earth. Why are people the salt of the earth? Because God's children, people, human beings, who are made in the image of God, God's children are the salt of the earth. We're sprinkled about like fairy dust. And so we hold back the darkness that is in the world. People ask me all the time, why are we put here with demons? Why is this happening? Well, again, you don't get a diamond until you've refined the coal, and that takes a lot of friction to do that. And that is what demons are. They are a challenge for us to overcome. Demons, lower level energy frequencies is how I explain that to people. It doesn't necessarily mean it has all of these human personality traits, though we like to attribute human character traits to gods and demons and things because it helps us to psychologically understand them better. But if you're explaining it to somebody who maybe isn't a believer in Christ, or doesn't have any religion, doesn't believe in jinn, doesn't believe in demon, it's a lower level frequency, right? And it is sentient, it is life form like we are, but it is driven by more carnal means. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So we're going to talk about salt today, and I know I might have Christians who are going to say, oh, this is witchcraft, please. God would not say it over and over again, and I'm going to show you how the Bible, in part, is a farming manual. It is a life manual. It is also an astronomy book. It tells you about the seasons, how the seasons change, but it also teaches you recipes or alchemical stuff. If you want to attribute creation itself of man by God, in our understanding, it is an alchemical transmutive process, okay? So again, I might have some Christians who watch the channel, Christ followers, who say, well, this is witchcraft. God placed this stuff here for us to eat, to enjoy, to have pleasure, but also to be able to protect ourselves. Our whole generation, from Generation X down, we were raised blindly. We were raised without the empowerment of knowing we have things here to protect us. God would not place us down here with these things without giving us protection. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what the natural world has to offer us. And witchcraft, in part, if you are not a witch by birth, meaning non-human, if you go that route as a human being, it is all about intention. It is all about how you use people, objects, tools, emotions, psychology, psychotomy. It's manipulation through means of deception to get something that you want that benefits you. That's witchcraft, okay? So we're going to talk about salt. I got a few things put up. I got the links in the description box. The 3 that I definitely want to go over because I got a whole slew of stuff. And so we're going to start kind of easy, all right? I want to let you know that the main verse that talks about us being the salt of the earth, I think, is Matthew 5:13, I think. And again, if you want my summation of that or translation, it is telling us we are sprinkled about like fairy dust to hold back the darkness. Salt is the light of the earth. We are the salt of the earth. Salt is light. Salt is pure. Salt is when babies used to be baptized way back in the beginning, and this again was changed with Vatican II. Babies used to be given not just the purity of water, a water baptism into, you know, the welcoming into the family and the church family, but they would also put salt underneath your tongue. I found that out when doing the research and grabbing links for today's live stream, and I didn't know that. And how many things have they taken away from us that could possibly offer some avenue of protection? And we have a lot going on spiritually here today, and people will say, well, it is a war of flesh and blood. Just look at what's happening in our streets. But we don't know that. There's a lot of deception out there. They love their movie magic. And this is how you know when people are demonized. Number one, they need invited in like a vampire. They need invited into your life. Do not have a welcome mat at this time. With all the strangeness going on, anyone who needs invited in has some type of demonic attachment. Anyone, you know, who's your friend, who's your family, and they give you a little knock and they walk in like normal, cool. But if it's somebody you know and they like, well, aren't you going to invite me in? Don't invite them in. I learned the hard way. So salt can act as a protective measure too. So let's read a little bit about it. I was going to say something back there, but I had to take extra medicine. My head is so like a faucet. It is, I have so much moisture in my head and in between my eyes and nose. So if I grab from my hanky, I apologize. But my skin is so dry like SpongeBob, so I'm having a time. Okay, salt. This is from Fandom. This is Kaleidoscope Path Wiki. And again, we're just getting our feet wet here. We're just going to read a little bit about what they have to say here. Salt. Salt mineral with magical and alchemical properties because it is white and thus pure and a preservative, right? We use it in our foods. They used to use it, they use it to cure bacon. Back in the day, when you had a long trip across sea, a sea voyage, you would salt the meat, salt the bacon, salt the fat, whatever, and it would preserve it. Niacin and sodium are forms of salt. So because it is white and thus pure and it is a preservative, salt is a magical protection. Again, let's not be afraid of that word. It is a protection against evil, including demons, witchcraft, the evil eye, vampires, and anything unholy. Catholics do still use salt, and that's also what another link that I have just for anyone who dips in and dips out or wants to know what's going on. There's another link because, again, I like to tie things up for you. And it shows how across all of the different religions, how salt has always been a part of purification. And I think that's telling, and I think that can help us in this time. Agents of evil, as well as people and animals who are bewitched, cannot eat anything salted, according to lore. I did not know that. That's interesting. Let's continue. In rituals, salt is used as a symbol of the element of earth and also as a purifier. However, salt is avoided in rituals for the conjuring of demons and necromancy, which is good for us, right? We don't want to conjure demons. We don't want to participate in necromancy. In Christianity, salt is symbolic of incorruptibility, eternity, and divine wisdom. A Catholic ritual of benediction with salt and water ensures physical health and the exorcism of evil spirits. I work with blessed salt, and I use regular salt too if I don't have any, because as a follower of Christ, you have permission and the authority to bless things. Not as much authority as a deacon or a bishop or what have you, and yes, There is biblical precedence for a hierarchy, although women used to be included in that hierarchy. They were called priestesses. So again, people will pick and choose a lot of what's in the Bible, and you really gotta be willing to get rid of all your preconceived notions and just really dive into stuff and understand what is being said, because the ones who raised us, they wanted us weak. They wanted us spiritually blind. That's one reason they put stuff in your arms, is because it spiritually blinds you. Okay. Salted holy water is used in baptisms. See, I didn't know that. In magic rituals, salt represents the earth, spiritual purity, and transmutation of consciousness to a higher level. In alchemy, salt is part of the tria prima with mercury and sulfur that compose all things, including the four elements. Salt represents the body, female, and earth aspects. It is the mother. That makes sense because above it says in Christianity it symbolizes divine wisdom, so that makes sense. It is the mother or the feminine principle within matter. That's fascinating. It also has a magnetic property, which we're going to talk about, because magnets were really big in the beginning of Rona in 2019. And again, everything is symbolism. I had to hear it around here with my son too. There's a reason they're talking about things like this. But it's up to us to figure it out, right? Because, oh, well, we told you, we gave you all the clues. Not in any order or language I could understand. Moving on. Salt represents the body, female, and earth. It is the mother feminine principle within matter. Salt is a preservative against the corruption of the body. The Egyptian used a form of it, natron. I never heard of that. Any science experts I could use you here because I need help in that area. Okay, so it's called natron, and it was used in mummification purposes. And thus, it is a magical elixir. Salt, mercury, and sulfur also have spiritual properties in alchemy. Salt represents the ultimate exaltation of matter, matter made aware, achieved through the union of opposites, including the fire and water and the above and below. Salt is the ultimate philosopher's stone. Interesting. Representing transcendence and ultimate knowledge. Salt also represents lower consciousness in alchemy. In ancient times, salt was associated with thought because of its ability to crystallize. I'm going to point to something real quick while I'm thinking of it, because I try to leave breadcrumbs everywhere. I think with David and Goliath, I don't think it was just a rock. I think it was a gemstone. Because they kind of like kryptonite is for Superman. In its purest form, it was thought to... Okay, this is different. Okay, so in ancient times, salt was associated with thought because of its ability to crystallize. In its purest form, thought was held to be a fluid, living substance in the higher realms that crystallized when it descended into human minds. Okay, so I would relate that to help us all understand. I would relate that to when people nowadays say they get it like a download from God, or they get imbued with knowledge that is truth that they wouldn't have known any other way. And that's why the Catholic Church has been real funny for the last 5 years in its teachings about who is possessed and who has an attachment. It's real funny that one of the gifts of the Holy Spirit is to speak in tongues, other languages. But they say that's a sign of possession is when you fast too much and you speak in languages that you don't know. Now, again, this is why you have to understand demons, angels, well, fallen angels and angels, they still have the same talents or gifts. They're just dark now. Hello again from South Australia. I have my son watching you with me. That's pretty cool. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Thus salt symbolizes consciousness, thoughts, feelings, materialism, and so forth. That must be elevated through alchemical processes of dissolution and recrystallization. Salt is identified, this is interesting, with the Aurora boreas. That is the snake eating its own tail. The self-devouring serpent or dragon. The salt of metal is the lapis. What is or philosopher's stone. Lapis lazuli. That's the one gemstone that they actually changed in modern times, because I couldn't figure out what one of the gemstones was on Aaron's vest, and it was lapis lazuli, but they changed the name, so I couldn't find it. Salt is a crucial ingredient in alchemical recipes for making gold. Making gold for salt? Really? Little water with some apple cider vinegar. A 17th century, that's not medical advice, a 17th century formula for potable gold believed to be an antidote for poison, a curative of heart disease. Funny, don't they tell us here that too much salt makes your heart bad? Hair of the dog, maybe. Oops. And a repellent of the devil included gold, salt, red wine vinegar. Red wine vinegar. Are we using the wrong kind of vinegar? Is apple cider vinegar not the right kind? The ashes of a block of tin burnt in an iron pan, wine and honey. Carl Jung associated salt with lunar symbolism and the unconsciousness. And Carl Jung is a very occultish guy. Most psychology majors are into the occult. And if you've ever been to therapy, you should be able to recognize that if you've studied. Study to show yourself approved. So that is the end of fandom. We were just getting our feet wet. So again, keeping in mind the idea that salt, we are the salt of the earth. We are meant to be pure. Our raiments are meant to be white. That doesn't mean perfect, though. And I think this is where a lot of people get tripped up when they follow Christ or try to follow Christ. They say, be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Heart. It has everything to do with heart, okay? Now, we're going to move to something a little more. Okay. Let me see if I can make sure I can locate it, because this is a Reddit thread and they get funky. Okay, so this one talks about a few different things. I'm going to save that for right now. Because we're going to still stick with salt for right now. So this is actually in the description box too. This is Saltworks Consultants. So this is actually all about salt. Like, it's a salt website, but it's not boring. There's a really cool picture on the front, actually. It says salt, social standing, and religious superstition. So we've got some Roman statues, Greek, some Greek stuff here. So we're going to read a little bit from this. Salt, because of its high value. Now, this is the thing. Salt used to be really expensive, too. It was basically a currency back in the day, especially when you were traveling, like, long miles across, like, the East Coast getting to the West. You know, if you're on the trail, or if you're going across in ship, you needed salt to preserve your meats and whatever else you needed to preserve. It's very good it's a preservative agent, right? So it used to be expensive because of that, because it kept other things good. And not only that, but it was seen as spiritually pure too. So salt, because of its high value in the ancient world, has maintained both cultural and religious significance over more than 3 millennia. For example, in medieval Renaissance European kingdoms, easy access to salt during meals assigned social status. This is fascinating. I'm going to watch next time I go. Well, I don't go anywhere fancy anymore. Intricately carved salt cellars would be placed on certain tables. Like, that's a salt, you know, within easy reach of those deemed worthy. Accordingly, at any noble table, to be seated below the salt was seen to be you were unworthy of access to such a luxury. So a salt cellar, it's basically a salt shaker, but back then they were fancy and they were very nicely carved. And the higher you were in the nobility class, the more fancy your stuff, right? But if they wanted to, like, invite you to a party but, like, snub you at the same time, they would seat everybody else closer to the salt and seat you at the other end, so you would be seen, you know, publicly again around your peers being seated lower than the salt, so you weren't deemed worthy. That's funny to me. Okay, moving on. I like to explain certain things because I know not everybody likes to read these days. I know not everybody has time to study. So I just want to make sure, there's no point in giving you information if there's no context. From its value and its use as a preservative and food additive in the ancient pre-rationalist world, salt became a religious symbol representing immutability, meaning immutability, you cannot change it, and incorruptible purity, saying no matter what happened to it, it was always pure, right? That's what they're saying anyway. In many religions, salt is still included on the altar to represent purity, and it is mixed into holy water of various sects, sects, don't be funny, for the same reason. Okay, now let's scroll down a little bit because this is getting interesting. Ancient Greek worshippers consecrated salt in their rituals. Now, we are going to go over, after this part, we're going to get into more, how do you apply it to your daily life? How is it applicable to us today in the world? Because again, I don't think it matters who you are at this point in time. I don't think you can be living, especially in America, and think that things are normal. For a long time, it was just on the screens, like, to make us look bad, to make people hate us, and okay, whatever, Jersey Shore, yada, yada. But certain generations have been raised on nothing but that now, and so this is the result, and you have a lot of people running around who are apathetic and have no empathy. Oh, yes, it is Matthew 5:13. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? And every offering of you, this is Leviticus 2:13, and every offering of your grain offering you shall season with salt. You shall not allow the salt of the covenant of your God to be lacking from what? Your grain offering. Pay attention to that. With all your offerings, you shall offer salt. Now, spiritually, what does that mean? Are we actually in the Old Testament and, we can't pray unless we're offering salt, or we can't offer... Ritualistically speaking, if you're praying to the Father in heaven, to the creator, maker, fabricator of the realm, I'm pretty sure that if you offer him salt because you're trying to be repentant, like, I'm sure he would see that as like, oh, that's cute, I see all of our rituals like that. Like, if you're talking about God, it doesn't add anything on to the creator. But I'm sure he's touched and is like, aw, they're paying attention. I think the Native Americans, when we talk about the Hopi prophecies, they're specifically talking about certain things that have to be done to welcome in and usher out the old seasons, for harvest, for planting, for sowing, for reaping. There are certain festivals and certain rituals that are supposed to be done for that. And I tend to think we need to all go back to the old ways. A lot of people will disagree with me. That's fine. But, this is why I try to find things where there's a commonality through all these different faith systems. I'm sorry, this chair. All right, so moving on. Ancient Greek worshippers consecrated salt in their rituals. For example, the Vestal virgins sprinkled all sacrificial animals with salt and flour. Salt was a token of permanence to both Jews of the Old Testament and Christians of the New Testament. To the Jews, it came to signify the eternal covenant between Jews and Israel. Jewish temple offerings still include salt on the Sabbath, and Orthodox Jews still dip their bread in salt as a remembrance of those sacrifices. Like, see something like that? That's a nice, sweet, proper intention to, like, not worship, but honor the people who used to do that and your God. Covenants in both the Old and New Testaments were often sealed with salt, explaining the origin of the word salvation. That's fascinating. In the Catholic Church, salt is used in a variety of purifying rituals. I actually have some blessed salt. Jesus called his disciples, quote, the salt of the earth, end quote, a statement that was commemorated by the Catholic Church until, this is what I was telling you earlier, Vatican II, by placing a small taste of salt on a baby's lip at his or her baptism. Now, if we think of original sin, and if we believe in that, and we think of that concept, and we think of Vatican II removing all of these things, it's not just the salt, right? Like, they removed all kind of things. They changed the way the priest faced. They said the people weren't involved enough, but now it's very Masonic, it's very Protestant, and it's lacking reverence. I can at least say that, which is having eyes, and I'm not in the seminary. And again, I know every church has got its issues right now because they're man-made institutions. They're gonna have failings. Man is not infallible. Anyways, salt of the earth. If you think of all these things that they took away, and if you think of things like trauma while someone's pregnant, or having an argument while you're pregnant with the father of the child, or just the baby going through the portal that is the woman and coming into the world. What if it is a protective measure? What if, if there's any attachments coming with the child, what if that got rid of that? Because we don't know. But they took, and this is what I'm trying to tell you, they took all these things away for a reason. All the bells keep away demons, lower leveled energy frequencies, lower level sentient beings that dwell in lower frequencies and lower vibrations. They can't tolerate the bells. They can't tolerate them physically and spiritually. Now, physically, and again, I'm not a doctor, no part of this is medical advice, but there is a thought out there that physically, if you ring these bells, if you're always around these bells, or you do prayer every day with bells, or you do a regimen, that the sound will, along with fasting, will clear your body of little wormies, right? Again, I'm not a doctor. No part of this is medical advice. We are just discussing things like adults here. So that's one thought that's out there. So I like to give you, some of these because I've read a lot in my life, and not everybody has the time to read like I read and have read. And when I put all this stuff together, it doesn't look good. Like, it doesn't look good. But again, let's pick up these trails and follow them all the way back to the roots and find out why they were taken from us. In the modern Christian mainstream, the superstitious use of blessed salt is a commonplace belief. It is listed within the Anglican liturgy of Holy Baptism in the section on occasional offices of the Book of Common Prayer. I actually have that book. The following prayer, given under the rite of blessing of holy water, is said. Now again, this is application. Anyone that is here or comes to be here and watch the video, these would be the parts you write down, right? If you're studying to show yourself approved, these are the bits you would write down. Whether you're Catholic or not, it's all about intention. And if you can have extra protection for you and your family, wouldn't you want to have it? You're not asking anyone but God. These are things he gave you. He talks about salt all throughout the Bible. So let's just stick with that thought. Almighty and everlasting God, you have created, and this is how you would use it as a Christ follower, okay? Exactly like this. It says, given under the rite for blessing of holy water is said before the holy water sanctified, and, quote, salt is put into the water in the form of a cross, end quote. So you would cross the water with the salt. Almighty and everlasting God, you have created salt for the use of man. We ask you to, and again, so in your mind's eye, see this. You have a bowl of holy water, and you have a little, maybe vial. My blessed salt is over there. You have a little vial of blessed salt, right? And you make a cross over the holy water, because that's already blessed. It's already holy with the salt, okay? So. Almighty and everlasting God, you have created salt for the use of man. We ask you to bless this salt and grant that wherever it is sprinkled and whatever is touched by it may be set free from all impurity and attacks of Satan through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. That is how you, as a believer, would bless water, salt, virgin olive oil, which is really good for you. And it's another... virgin olive oil is seen as pure, especially cold pressed. It's seen as something that is pure. Frankincense, myrrh, you could bless any of those things. And then before your child walks out the door to go to school, give them a hug and a kiss. You bless their little forehead, and off they go. And again, you don't have to believe me. I'm just offering. I'm trying to help, right? I'm trying to help the situation because we've got a lot going on out there, and most of it's demonic. And I don't know that there's many Christ followers left. And so I want there to be. We have to each do our part. And just because, well, it was written, it has to happen. That's an apathetic. Christ followers are not called to be apathetic. We're not called to be complacent and sit on our hands. Just because something is written, we don't know if we're at that time. We are still supposed to live our lives, and we are to be God's mouthpiece, his hands, his feet. We're to be the salt of the earth. So now that was one way to bless salt or water or whatever. You would just replace the word salt, right, with water or whatever. Likewise, the published Roman rites of the Catholic Church also mention various uses of blessed salt. So again, if you want to write down the application, this is what you would do. The 1962 Rituale Romanum, Roman ritual, includes salt as a component in 3 rites. Baptism, before the candidates enter the church or baptistry, salt is blessed with an exorcism. It's just a special blessing that only a priest can do, and a pinch can be put in the mouth of the candidate. However, in modern practices, this can be skipped. A lot can be skipped, it seems, after Vatican II. Reconsecration of an altar. This is the second way in which Catholics use, and we're not talking about just Catholics, trust me, we're getting there. Reconsecration of an altar. In one rite for the reconsecration of an altar which has been disturbed, salt is exorcised, blessed, and mixed with ashes, water, and wine. The resulting mixture being used to make the mortar with which the altar is resealed. Okay? And again, these are Christ followers, all right? In the book of Tobit, if you've never read it, and this is why the Protestants took a lot of this stuff out, the book of Tobit tells you how to get rid of very specific demons. And you have to get a fish, and you have to use the gall of a fish, and you have to smoke it, and the smell of it. And again, I can just picture Native Americans knowing this, natives of the land knowing this. Our civilized and civilization comes from the fallen because it's all distraction. The third way in which the Catholic Church uses blessed salt is they bless holy water with the salt. Salt is added to the water in silence after a prayer in which God is asked to bless the salt, recalling the blessed salt, quote, scattered over the water by the prophet Elisha, end quote. And see, prophets used it too. So again, I don't want to deal with any witchcraft comments. And invoking the protective powers of salt and water that they may, quote, drive away the power of evil, end quote. An additional rite provides for the blessing of salt for animals. I actually have, Etsy is awesome. I have what's called a spiritual warfare kit. I've gotten 2. And I might get another one because I ran out of some stuff. And it's from not in my state. A woman does it, and you're not supposed to charge for blessed items, but you're only paying for the actual, like the prayer cards and the shipping. But you get like all these different prayers. That's where I found out the St. Patrick's Day prayer, which I think everyone should say every day before you leave the house, because it has some very specific things at the end of that prayer, which are good protective measures. Again, ever since I started doing some of this stuff, there's a reason I don't talk about certain things anymore, because they're not a problem for me anymore at this time. Right now, anyways, I'm not daring or tempting God. Okay, so moving on. Anyway, I had this kit, and it has right on it prayers, specific prayers that all you got to do is Google it. You can find prayers specific for just regular people, laity, for followers of Christ, for Christ followers, Christians, Catholics, whatever you call yourself. And it gives you blessing prayers to use. So they used it to drive away evil. Blessed salt is also used in prayer services of Pentecostal churches, such as the Apostolic Church Fullness of God's Throne. I don't mess with Methodists anymore, and neither should you. If you want to know why, I'll tell you, but I'm not going to get into it unless I'm asked. To the more religious Christians, salt remains a supernatural symbol of the permanent sanctity of Jesus and offers supposed hands-on protection from evil. Salt is still used to make holy water, also the more powerful exorcised water of the Roman Catholic Church. Salt is also used to make protective circles during exorcism of demons. Now, anyone that saw the show Supernatural, again, most people will tell you, don't watch that. If you're a Christ follower, don't watch that. Don't watch that. There are so many tells in horror movies. Again, I see Christ in every story. I told you about, how Friday the 13th tells us about how to stay on the narrow path. And it's, sin leads to death, right? And in Friday the 13th, the ones who are getting it on and having nookies, they end up deceased. The ones who don't follow the rules and veer off the path, they end up with problems too. The ones who are doing substances they shouldn't be doing or are intoxicated, they end up deceased. Do you see how there's an echo of the story in every story, right? So anyone that tells you like you shouldn't watch horror movies or you know, supernatural is bad, this, that, and the other, there are certain things in there. It's called Know Thy Enemy, but there's also things in there to help you. Not everyone here, they want you to think that there's no good people, decent people here. They want you to think that it's more evil than it is good, because you consent, right? This is our land. But if we consent to it being all those Christ followers that say, oh, Satan is the Lord of God of this world. Look, man, I don't care what Paul said. He meant the systems, the system. He didn't mean nature, earth itself. We're told Christ is king. So everybody got to stop having a double mind, because if you believe it, that is the first step to protecting yourself, is belief and faith, right? Okay, so anyway, I get carried away. I don't mean to. I'm not a man. I don't mean to preach. I'm just, again, trying to help. Salt is still used to make holy water, and also the more powerful exorcised water of the Roman Catholic Church. It's used to make protective circles during exorcisms of demons. You need a bottle of blessed salt, it says. In the middle of the last millennium in Europe, salt was believed to provide defense against witches, witchcraft, demons, sprites, and the evil eye. It was a common belief that witches and the animals they bewitched could not eat anything salted. Now I think back to all the old people, because, you know, I used to think that old people were so sweet, and I still love taking care of them when I did stuff. I have good memories, and I learned a lot. But who was the witch in Snow White? It wasn't an old person. Think of, like, the old people who, like, oh, I can't have salt, it's bad for me. Like, none? Because we're supposed to have some in our, like, it's part of our body. It makes you wonder. Okay, so anyway. It is believed to provide defense against witches, witchcraft, demons, sprites, and the evil eye. It was a common belief that witches and animals could not eat anything salted. Inquisitors were advised by demonologists to protect themselves by wearing an amulet of salt, consecrated on Palm Sunday, along with other blessed herbs, pressed into a disc of blessed wax, like beeswax. Carrying a concealed packet of salt was said to ward off the evil eye as well. I had grandparents who talked about the evil eye all the time. Another known talisman to ward off evil spirits was a jar of salt and a knife. Some people put salt and pepper in their left boot for good fortune. See, now that's stuff, like that superstition, and yeah, that kind of stuff I just, no. To ward off an evil witch, a peasant might throw salt outside the front door and lean a broom next to it. A passing witch would have to count the grains of salt and the blades of straw in the broom before they could do any harm. That's another thing, too. If you take a broom and you lay it across a threshold of a door, they can't walk across it. And the other thing, and watch who does this in your house. Test somebody. If somebody's visiting you and they enter through one door, if it's a witch, they got to go out that same door. They can't go a different door. It's bad luck or whatever. What? Just, you don't have to believe me, but I live around a lot of strange, different people, and they think I'm strange. Similarly, okay, now we're going to get into some more stuff with like Buddhism and stuff, and you'll see how it's a common thread. It's a common practice, not religiously, but humanistically. Human beings, right, have been using salt since the beginning. Similarly, any waste of salt can be a portent of evil, meaning like if you spill it, you better pick it up and not waste any of it. In Leonardo da Vinci's famous painting, The Last Supper, Judas Iscariot has just spilled a bowl of salt. Really? Hold up. I'm pretty good on symbolism, and I never noticed that. He's right there, right? Isn't that him? Oh, he did. It's right there. I see it. You know what else the Da Vinci Last Supper painting taught me? What do you see on the table? A bunch of bread and water or ale. You don't see nothing else, just bread. Wow. Okay, so in the Last Supper, Judas Iscariot has just spilled a bowl of salt, a portent of evil and bad luck. So they're showing that's what Da Vinci did to like show his bad character or his, you know, that he was going to take a fall was, and again, it's symbolism. It doesn't mean he actually spilled one at the Last Supper. It's symbolic in the painting. Sadly, I have to explain some of these things, and it makes me upset. In Buddhist tradition, salt repels evil spirits. It is also why in many Asian cultures, it's customary to throw salt over your shoulder before entering your house after a funeral. It scares off any evil spirits that may be clinging to your back. In the Christian tradition, you should throw spilt salt over your left shoulder as, according to the medieval church, the devil or his demons reside behind or on your left shoulder. Interesting. With your guardian angels on the right. Fascinating. In Hawaii and Samoa, sea salt is used for protection, both by placing salt in each of the four corners of the house. That's similar to how you bless it as a Catholic. And by pouring salt on the door threshold to prevent any spirits from crossing into one's home. I do that. Have done that. And I also have buried Psalm 91 in special places, and I've done all kind of little things. In the Middle East, outcrops of diaperic salt masses can also have significance to some Christians. Genesis 19:26. Lot's wife was noted in the journals of Fulcher of Chartres, chaplain to King Baldwin, who accompanied the Crusader Baldwin I across the Dead Sea Valley in December of 1180. In reality, the stone feature that's actually salt, described as Lot's wife, is a fracture-defined 12-millimeter high caprock-capped column of diaperic salt lying at the foot of the much larger Mount Sedum or Uzdum on the southwestern edge of the Dead Sea. Yeah, and you think about like the oceans and the salt that they have in them. Like, why is there so much salt in the water? What happened way back whenever that occurred? That you have fresh water and salt water, right? And you can't drink salt water because it'll hurt you. It'll make you dehydrated. Again, like the hair of the dog, it seems to be some type of balance. Okay, so let's move on to the next little bit here. Chinese folklore credits the phoenix with the discovery of salt. One day, a peasant saw a phoenix rise from the ground. He knew there must be a treasure on the earth where the phoenix had risen into the air. He worked the soil for many hours, but could not find no wealth, only soil. Still, he knew it must have value, so he took the soil to the emperor and gifted him his treasure. The emperor said it was nothing but earth and put him to death for his impudence. Later, a piece of this earth fell into a bowl of soup for the emperor. On tasting it and discovering it that the source of his new wonderful taste was the dead peasant's soil, he felt great shame. He called for the dead man's wife and son and gifted them control of the lands where salt occurred. The peasant's family became rich and prosperous. And here we get into our favorites these days. In Norse, there's some really cool graphics with this. You guys should check out the link. In Norse mythology, the gods first came from a salty ice block. Over 4 days as the sacred cow, Arumbla, sorry if I said that wrong, lifted Buri, the first god in Norse mythology, and grandfather of Odin, out of the salty ice block. So the alchemical practice that created the Norse was salt blocks? Interesting. In another creation myth, Tiamat is the symbol of chaos in the primordial creation in Mesopotamia religion, Sumerian, Assyrian, Akkadian, and Babylonian. She is a primordial salty goddess of the ocean, mating with Apsu, the god of fresh water, to produce the younger little G-gods. Her husband, Apsu, later makes war upon their children and is killed. When she, too, wars upon her husband's murderers, she is then slain by Enki's son, the storm god Marduk, and the arch of the heavens and the earth were formed from her divided body. So that's another creation myth. We've been going over those. Fascinating stuff. Records from the Middle Euphrates Hittite kingdom of Mari attest to the veneration of Hada, the god of salt, little g, through the erection of a statue to him by the city's ruler, Zimri Lim. Among Hittite rituals, perhaps the best known use of salt is one that parallels its use in various Mesopotamian curses. The first Hittite soldier's oath employs salt within an analogical curse ritual against that soldier who would commit treason. Ancient Greek worshippers also consecrated salt in their rituals. Interesting. In the Aztec religion, okay, we're going to call this guy Hux. This woman, sorry, Hux, because I'm sorry, whoever you are. Okay, in the Aztec religion, I can't say it. Hux was a fertility goddess who presided over salt and salt water. The Aztecs considered her to be the older sister of the rain gods, little g, including Tlaloc. Hux had angered her younger brothers by mocking them, so they banished her to the salt beds. Oh, it was there where, sometimes family is the worst. It was there where she discovered salt and how it was created. During the 7th month of the Aztec calendar, there was a festival in honor of Hux. During the festival, salt makers would honor the deity with dances that lasted for 10 days. The celebration culminated with the sacrifice of Hux's okay, so I guess it's like a doll? No, because I don't know. The embodiment of the goddess in human form. Oh, yeah, so proxy. Human sacrifice. Yeah, I get it. They used a person, a proxy, like Wicker Man, and threw it into the fire. It's okay, you're doing fine. Thanks, these are hard. I can't even begin to say that name either. So, okay, so song and dance. Song and dance in honor of Hux continued for 10 days, yeah, and then they ended up, I guess, sacrificing a proxy. After the sacrifice, people scattered and celebrated the end of the festival with banquets. All those who were affiliated with salt would drink wine, and by the end of the night, most were drunk. In the American Southwest, the Pueblo worshipped the Salt Mother. Other Native American tribes had significant restrictions on who were permitted to eat salt. Hopi legend, I love Hopi legends, holds that the angry warrior twins punished mankind by placing valuable salt deposits far from civilization, requiring hard work and bravery to harvest the precious mineral. Nothing wrong with hard work. Shinto religion also uses salt to purify an area. Before sumo wrestlers enter the ring for a match, which is actually an elaborate rite, a handful of salt is thrown into the center to drive off malevolent spirits. What is our point with all this? All across cultures, all across time, all across religions, salt has been a valuable commodity amongst human beings. Doesn't matter what religion. Salty inhabitants of the dream time. Salty landscapes are part of the Australian inland, and there are many Aboriginal myths to explain or warn about them. Oh gosh, we're getting into these big names. In the indigenous culture of the Australian Northwest, Poppintil, or Lake Disappointment, and its surrounds were off limits to the tribes of the area. The Kurarara, Wanman, Kartadara, and the Putadara. The reason for the taboo passed down across the dreaming to modern times derives from the lake's mythological associations with the some type of spirits. They seem to be malevolent. Thought to live below the lake's salt crust cover. Even today, this prohibition extends to flying over the area. That's fascinating. Since I'm going to call him Q, because the last 2 letters are KU. We're going to call him Q. He's a god. Or no, he's the spirits. They're the wicked spirits. Ancestral cannibal beings with pointy teeth. Oh, that's what they are. Wow, that reminds me of Revelation about the locusts. Okay, so even today, there's a prohibition that you can't fly over this salty area in Australia. or these areas. Since the ancestral cannibal beings with pointy teeth and claw-like fingernails devour all that enter their area, and they are deemed capable of ripping apart even aeroplanes that intrude over the lake's airspace. Is that true? Do they still say that stuff? It makes me wonder about people that aren't allowed to fly here. I've been highly, highly, highly discouraged and even gaslit to the point of not traveling and definitely not flying. I'd be interested to see what would happen if I just got a plane ticket. I can afford a plane ticket and I just decide to go. The Aboriginal people of Australia living around Lake Eyre tell the tale of Cootamundra, a fearsome creature that eats people who wander into the salt-covered areas of the southern part of the lake. It is supposed to look like a bunyip, a creature throughout Australian Aboriginal culture. Bunyip translates to the devil or evil spirit. The name for the bunyip varies from area to area, like a boogeyman. And at Lake Eyre, E-Y-R-E, almost airy, it is called the Cootamundra. Historically, across Australia, many Aboriginal people explain Diprotodon skeletons as the bones of the bunyip. Interestingly, and what are the former... So that sounds like the Myth of the Fallen a little bit. Interestingly, and what are the former water-covered areas of now desiccated Lake Calabana and Lake Blanche are the remains of various megafaunal vertebrates, especially the rhinoceros-sized herbivore Diprotodon, aka thunderbird or demon duck. That's interesting. The remains are generally found in wind-eroded muddy mounds. There are thousands of such mud-covered gypsum-cemented piles littering the exposed lake floors. Wow, you guys got it going on over there. These fossil carcass mounds reflect a time of dramatic climate change, with desiccation of former... Yeah, climate change. Try a ginormous flood. Try climate change all at one time. The climate changed. Then there are the bones of the Bedara in Deep Lake at the southern tip of the York Peninsula in South Australia. And the Dreaming, the Ngama, a powerful being who possessed great skill at club throwing, met Bedara, one of the Ilara, a dwarf people living in earth mounds. Okay, basically... Oh, wow. So these gods had it... These little G gods, they had it out. And now they're spirits who roam the salt mounds. I don't know if I believe that. Because salt, again, is supposed to be purifying. But you will often find that. You will often find there seems to be a balance. Okay, what time are we at? Not even an hour, so I'm going to pull up another link that I have on salt. Hold, please. Just give me a moment. Gee, I don't know which one. I've got 3 more, and they're all looking pretty good. Let me check this one real quick and see what it is. We all know about the bunyip and the yowie. Aboriginals have told me that the most worst, scariest evil entity they call is a mumul. Ooh. I know, it's talking about how, like, cannibals and stuff, too. It's creepy. It's kind of creepy. Plants that ward off evil spirits. Okay, so I have plants only because they started talking about vinegar too, and I told you guys about those. So we'll save this one. And then I'll go back. Now, where is this? Is that Reddit? I know it can't be added. Okay, we were talking about this the other day too, so I'm going to read a couple of these comments in a Reddit thread regarding salt. Okay, so this person says, and I just want you to hear this one part, because we were talking about this in the last video. If I remember right, weren't the folklore traditions of vampires having to count each grain of salt obsessively? Meaning if you throw salt behind you, the vampire has to count those grains first before they can attack, which is all these supernatural malevolent beings. That's a rumor that goes along with them. I don't know if it's true. And presumably you'd be gone by the time they finish counting. And it says here, also, I'd be interested in knowing about the Fae, as they seem to be sticklers for certain manners, like you must be invited in before entering. That's not just the Fae, that's, again, all of these things, all right? Now, this one says the counting distraction was applied to all sorts of supernatural entities, as well as witches and the Walking Dead. So it could be matches that you drop. Whatever it is, if you're in trouble with somebody that's like this, they have to stop and they have to count those. And again, that OCD behavior is indicative of demonic attachment. This is how people will behave because they have certain legalities that they have to follow and they can't get around it. Mankind has free will. We could break the laws and rules if we want to. Demons, again, once you totally go to the wicked side, it's almost worse because you have to follow all these legalities because that's what keeps us safe. Okay, moving on. And it says the counting distraction was applied to all sorts of entities as well as witches and the Walking Dead. The thing that could require counting includes sand and the holes in a sieve. This is not unique to salt. Right, I said it could be like matches, a pack of matches. Okay, so we're going to go this way. Go back here. And now I'm going to pull this up. Okay, now this is... Oh, this is called Connect Paranormal Blog. It's a blog somebody wrote. And I like to get old stuff, but this is a newer blog. Let me see. Do we want to read that one, or I have one more because I'm crazy that way. Where are you? Is it this one? No, I don't even know where I'm at. Yeah, okay. So we will read this one. I think. Stop giving me a hard time. Okay, Connect Paranormal Blog. Salt and supernatural, ancient practices against evil spirits. Salt is widely believed to protect against evil spirits across various cultures, serving as a barrier against negative energies. Its purported protective properties are tied to its crystalline structure, right? This science and alchemical stuff is how everything is, it's kind of like reverse engineering almost. Historical significance and psychological effects. While modern paranormal practices still utilize salt, scientific evidence for its protective abilities remain inconclusive, underscoring cultural beliefs' persistence. So they're saying there is no scientific, but it could be understood, right? That if salt is pure, then anything that you bless with salt or anywhere that you put salt would make that pure as well, or it could be done. So it says salt and evil spirits, some key points. Salt serves as a protective barrier of evil spirits across diverse cultures, which we just proved to be true. Evil spirits are non-physical entities that cause disturbances and feed on negative emotions. That's key. I paid money for a crappy Jamie Kennedy movie that I might have to review for you guys because they're going on about CERN, LHCs, loosh. Like, and I'm only halfway through it. So it's really bad. It's not great. But the story is suspect. So, anyways. Salt allegedly repels spirits through its crystalline structure or by forcing them to count grains. Explanations include salt's preservative nature, electromagnetic properties, and religious symbolism. Religious symbolism. My medicine's starting to make me goofy. I'm going to have to end this soon. Modern paranormal investigators still use salt despite lack of scientific evidence. Salt's universal protective status suggests either cultural diffusion or natural symbolic associations. So, we don't really need to read the introduction because we've read a lot of this now. We've gone over a lot of this. Okay, salt has been thought to have an important paranormal properties throughout history. Across many cultures, we know this. Many cultures think that salt has natural purifying properties that get rid of unwanted spiritual presences in spaces. People who believe these principles do things like sprinkle salt across doorways. I do this with my blessed salt around living. I mean, just think of for serious though, think of like how many, and not to be gross or anything, but how many like little animals are harmed by salt, right? Like it almost burns them. And most of them animals have like or leave behind a sulfuric smell. Like it's all connected, all this stuff. Let's see. Some traditions suggest that carrying small packages of salt for protection, while others use salt in ritual baths. I've done that. I mean, we use bath salts anyways, right? Why not use blessed salt? And that is a good thing to do. And I won't ever recommend cold waters. That's a bad ritual, and I think that does something to your spirit if you use that really cold water and you do, like, I don't promote that because of the people I see promoting it, and I think I know what it's used for, but I don't even want to get into that in this video. But you could, if you had, like, a messy breakup with somebody or a nasty fight with somebody or an argument, right? I wish I still had a bath because it's more purifying, and you can actually... You think of it as almost, I mean, it's not as serious as a baptism, right? And you think if we take baths and we shower almost every day in our modern society, back in the day, they didn't do that. And water was a currency and a commodity too, especially running water for the people of nobility. Evil spirits are different to negative energy of humans. Neither evil possession is proven. There is no medically accepted proof. Are you a doctor? That evil or demonic possession is a real medical condition. I didn't say it was. Good if you have a bath in your home. Right. I love it when new people come around and they think they're going to banter with me. If you're not a doctor, then really. And I do believe in possession. You don't have to. That's the good thing about having your own mind. You can have your own thoughts, and I can have my own thoughts. You don't have to agree with me. But I would ask you what you're doing here. There doesn't have to be proof. Do you think if there was proof that they'd go around telling people? Do you think that if there was proof, and that if people knew that they could get rid of these things themselves, and that possibly they were attached to the reason that maybe they weren't feeling well or up to par, boy, that would kind of do in a couple of really big industries, wouldn't it? If people knew they could get rid of these things by themselves on their own, and they didn't need medical proof, medical help. And I'm not a doctor. No part of this is medical advice. This is a spiritual conversation and about how to get rid of spiritual attachments. And okay, you don't have to think of it as possession. It's a lower leveled, a lower frequency being, sentient being. And now you're going to tell plankton is a lower leveled frequencied sentient being. That's why he's so darn grouchy, because he's way down there in frequency. Moving on. Evil spirits, as defined in different belief systems, are usually thought of as non-physical beings that want to hurt people. In different cultures, these beings may be called demons, ghosts, jinn, or other supernatural beings. However, they all have similar traits when it comes to how they are thought to interact with our world. Many traditions say that these beings feed on negative feelings, making people feel poorly, causing trouble amongst people, or bringing bad luck to make people scared and suffer. People often say that evil spirits, that they do this so that the spirits can eat. They can eat up the loosh, the negative emotions. People often say that evil spirits live in a parallel dimension or a vibrational state that sometimes overlaps with our physical reality. Quantum mechanics has pretty much been proven. And quantum mechanics would then prove different types of frequencied beings and different beings being on these different frequencies. Just saying. Okay, people often say that evil spirits live in a parallel dimension or vibrational state that sometimes overlaps with ours. This approach lets them affect the material world without being fully present in it. Their motivations are often depicted as varying from mischievous disruption to overt hostility, with certain traditions positing that these entities actively endeavor to possess, manipulate, or harm the living. Again, like this demon syndrome. Mainstream media is talking about demon syndrome. Well, if you happen to see people a little different, I don't think it's demon syndrome. Now everybody's seeing it. Look at Sharon Osbourne. God help her. Look at her daughter. Look at Jessica Simpson. How many of these people have we seen? Ariana Grande, who seem to have had their souls sucked out of them. How many do we have to see before we admit something is going on here? And they say, what is it? Demon syndrome, that's damage control. That's after the fact, right? But if you look at the pictures of these demons with the giant lips and the whole... And you're seeing it with more women, but you are seeing it with some men. I'm really wondering if these are the witches. You know what it reminds me of? I'll be really blunt right now. What story it reminds me of, if you want to talk about, relate current time, these people to a story, I would relate it to the Wendigo. How the Wendigo starves and starves and can't get enough. And it's so starving, no matter what it eats, it's like feeding off of itself, right? Because the Wendigo is gluttonous, but it never gets full. It's like a bottomless pit. And it's real thin like that. If you look or read any of the stories or watch any of them dumb movies that try to portray the Wendigo, it never gets full. It's not a fat, gluttonous monster. It's very thin. That's what those people remind me of them having something that's wrong, spiritually speaking. None of this is medical advice. I'm not a doctor. No part of this. My disclaimers are in the disclaimer description box. Okay, some theories, this is what I want to get into in this link. Some theories say that salt is a spiritual, quote, grounding agent, end quote, that connects ethereal energies to the physical earth, which stops the otherworldly power that keeps evil spirits alive. And if you put all the language together, if you listen to somebody at CERN talk about ions and neutrons and charged and not charged, if you know what those words mean, they're basically capturing higher frequencied beings and lower frequencied beings. They're trying to capture angels and demons, but they're trying to harness them to use their energy, which is probably going to be very, very bad. Anyways, moving on. Religious scholars say that salt's biblical links to covenant purity and preservation may have played a role in its use as a spiritual protective element in traditions that are influenced by Abrahamic religions. Once again, it is not witchcraft. Anthropological, and people that say that, they have very small minds. People that troll, very small minds. They don't mind you thinking that. They don't care. You say, oh, this is not how a decent person behaves. This is not how a mature person behaves. This is not how an adult you try to get them to see their behavior it's not a good look. They don't care. They just don't care. And that's sad. It really is. I have so much that I could say to embarrass certain people on here just by how much they have declined in their human behavior, but I won't go that route. I'm not going to do that to people. Just thought I'd mention a couple little things there. I don't like when trolls come to my channel. Community practices often incorporate, and it just shows, again, the fact that we're all shadow banned, everybody that's talking about things that can be applied and help us in this current time, the fact that they're not allowing the videos to be seen, barely. And I know the channel's not great. I know I don't have a sponsor, right? But even by happenstance, you'd get a few views here and there. My videos get no more views other than when they're live. You'd get stragglers. You'd get a comment here and there. I get nothing like that. And most TIs don't. And again, I'm not trying to bore you. The point is, you will notice when it's happening. And I hope that nobody calls you crazy. because this is how they're isolating people, is they're already giving us like AI to talk to. They're cutting people off from their family. And there's a lot of people now who are starting to say, wait a second, this is not how my family talks. I can't get a hold of this person. Like, people are talking openly about it now. So I hope that like soon people, like this spring, people are ready to gather, because there's not going to be any way to go forward in this way of life for people who don't want to do certain things. Like, that's what it's going to come down to that. Traditional, okay, so it says here, salt's symbolic and ritualistic importance in these situations shows it's more than just a physical thing. It is a culturally significant thing that can keep evil away. Additionally, traditional practitioners in areas like Zimbabwe have recorded their utilization of ceremonial salt alongside particular herbs to dispel undesirable spiritual influences. Mudan, oh, that's a citation, sorry. The combination of plants and salt in spiritual protection rituals shows how important these practices are to health and well-being. Ritualistic cleansing practices involving salt have been recorded as elements of communal rites intended to purify individuals perceived as spiritually impure, highlighting the persistent association between salt, malevolence, and spiritual purification across diverse communities. These customs embody a comprehensive perspective on health and social order, illustrating the vital interaction between spiritual and medical interventions. Interesting. When ghost hunters and spiritual mediums try to talk to spirits, they often use salt circles or lines as protective barriers. They think that these make a safe space for them to do their work. Some paranormal researchers say that they have seen strange electromagnetic fluctuations near salt barriers while doing their research. That's what really interests me here too, is like, if you can prove certain things through science, all the better. All the better. Real science and real faith, real belief in God, are not opposed to each other. Science, true, repeatable, observable science, is the fingerprint of the one who made all of this. Okay. I would not use black salt. You have a lot of people now selling black salt. I would not use it. I'm just giving you my instincts and my gut instincts since about 2018. You know, God has been telling me things, I believe, you know, in my heart or whatever. I would not use, they say black salt is used to absorb negative energies. I don't agree with that. Just like this Oregon that Sherry Shriner was trying to push. The people that I know that used it totally changed after they had it. I would not recommend Orgonite either. And there's no saying what it actually is. Okay, so I wanted to see if this one had anything different that we hadn't heard of yet. Salt's role in keeping evil spirits away goes beyond just ideas. It is also used in real-life situations and cultural traditions all over the world. In Japanese Shinto, small piles of salt, called morihyo, are put at the entrance of businesses to keep negative energy away and bring in beneficial energy. If you spill salt, Eastern European traditions say to throw it over your left shoulder. We read that. This gesture is thought to hit any evil spirits that might be behind you. Salt baths are recommended in Haitian voodoo and other similar religions to break curses or get rid of spiritual ties. And they know, not to be funny, but they know what they're talking about, because they send curses to people. So you have to know how to break them. If simple prayer did not work and fasting did not work, I would do a salt bath. We bathe in salt anyway. Like I said, it's not, and I have blessed salt. All right, so that was pretty interesting, guys. Thank you so much for being here with me to find out more about salt and how it is used. I will add on to these videos because I go over water, I've gone over salt, I've gone over blue, like certain colors, certain gemstones. Symbolically, it's good if you know what certain things mean, just to have media literacy and understand what they're actually trying to convey or not convey to your subconscious, right? Subliminally. I know you hear good and he guides you, so I know your intentions are good. That's very kind of you to say. I appreciate that. But listen, I fail every day. Like I'm not a good person. I lose my temper. I'm very hot-blooded, right? So I'm not, I'm trying. I am trying and I am striving. But God talks, I believe that God talks to all of us. It's our job to listen. And the more you clean out your temple, the better you can understand certain things and hear what he's saying. So I'm going to end this video now. It's been kind of long-ish. But what I wanted to tell you is I will add on to this. I've done videos on water, blue, salt, and when I get new information or more information, I bring that to the table and do another deeper dive into that topic. But I will go through and try to make some more comprehensive playlists and put them together for you guys. You're welcome. I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you found the information useful. That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here to keep me company. All right. Thank you for being here. You all have a blessed day. Hopefully somebody learned something and that will help somebody somewhere along the line. Bye, guys.